Hey there, everybody. Editor Dan here. Real quick before the show starts, we did get affiliated with ExpressVPN just recently. We're not quite sponsored yet, but if you want to help the stream out or if you want to help the podcast out, go check out ExpressVPN/Nat1Fun, and that'll get you 3 months free if you sign up for the 12-month package. That's it, guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to Nat 1on1, a podcast where we gain insight on the individuals in the tabletop role-playing game community about their current projects and what kind of stuff they may have in store for us in the future. I'm your host, Dan Munoz, and joining me today is an extremely well-known force within the TTRPG community. One of the minds behind Bard and Barbarian, bringing you the best content and merchandise nerddom has to offer, including a morning show called But What If?, where they talk Kickstarters, tabletop news, and survival scenarios. The lead behind Die Hard Dice's affiliate program, avid role player in some of the most popular TTRPG shows on the web, like if you've watched any of actual play ever, you've probably seen her. Professional GM, an ambassador for the charity organization's Jasper's Game Day, cosplayer, organizer, creator, actual vampire, and dice aficionado. It's Diana DiMicco!
That was great.
Welcome.
Will you introduce me on literally everything forever?
Well, I hope you like that. I hope you enjoyed it.
You
Hey,
really
there we
made
go.
my whole day.
Well, we have the link in chat for 1985 games. There we go. So that's I need to get that fixed up on our end as well. Welcome, Diana. Welcome to the show.
Hey.
I hope that was a fitting intro, but I tell you what, that doesn't explain half the shit you do online. So welcome and let's chat. Let's talk.
Let's do it.
How's your day been going so far?
It's great. It's wonderful. We did our But What If show this morning. We, drank some coffee and talked about some Kickstarters, and then I went on a Twitter rant. So, just about as good as any other day.
You got to start off the day with a Twitter rant. Like
what else are if you're not doing that, are you even living?
To be honest, it's kind of like part of the routine for me to be like, what the fuck is going on Twitter? So yeah. Okay. Well, as always, here on Nat 1on1, I'd like to get to know each one of you guys, my interviewees, a little bit more on the personal side before we start talking about what's going on in, your life TTRPG wise. I like to get to know you personally. So, I'd like to start off with, you have your paws in basically every corner of the TTRPG world right now, and you don't seem to be slowing down whatsoever. A powerhouse of talent and connections, if you will. But before you were known by half the community by name, basically, what was your first taste of TTRPGs? Did you play when you were a kid, or was it like a late involvement in the gaming world?
I would say it was later. So I'm one of those people who, when I find something I like, I get really like that becomes my whole personality for a few months. So my best friend, Desi, growing up, had played D&D for literal years before she convinced me to give it a shot. And I actually got into D&D because I was in a huge depression slump and I needed something to distract myself, something to do. So I went to one game and then I was absolutely hooked. And then, oh God, I want to say a few months later, I met Justice and started doing some casual work in TTRPGs. And then that's just become my whole life.
So yeah, I mean, like myself, I mean, I'm hyper obsessive when it comes to hobbies / things I enjoy and stuff like that. I think TTRPGs have kind of taken that slot in my life, at least, but have kind of fulfilled a thing that I think in other instances I'm like hyper obsessive for a moment, and then like my brain is like it just floats away to something different. I'm like, oh, look at that other shiny thing. TTRPGs have been able to really fill in that gap in my life that allows me to sit down and actually pay attention to this one thing. Now, of course, TTRPGs is a wide variety of things, but it's very much a community in and of itself. That is where I've kind of focused. And I think, yeah, I think what you were saying is kind of pretty common. Pretty common.
The best thing about it, so I feel like D&D is always the gateway drug, right? Like
Right.
D&D is most people's first RPG or TTRPG.
Mhm.
And then, as you just said, you sort of fall down this rabbit hole and you start to find all of these other RPGs, and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that there was a TTRPG specifically designated to Eldritch Horrors. Oh my gosh, what do you mean there are 5 RPGs specifically dedicated to Eldritch Horrors? And so even if you're like, okay, well, I'm burnt out on D&D, there are 1,000 other systems for you to go out there and try and find something else to obsess about for the next 6 months. And then maybe you go back
Absolutely.
to D&D. It's just great.
Absolutely. And I think that's I think that's really kind of why it comes down to the way it is because it's kind of cyclical for me because yeah, I do enjoy D&D, but then it's like if I ever do get bored of D&D, and I say bored very broadly because I really don't ever get bored of it. It's more along the lines of I kind of want to try something else because that
Mhm.
is my brain. It's like, ooh, shiny thing over here. And then I try something else, and then I try something else, and I'm like, okay, I like this thing, but I also like D&D. I'm gonna go back to D&D as well. So then it keeps going, and then I try something new, and then I try something new, and then I go back to D&D. So
Yep.
yeah. So where did you get your love for role playing? Where did that happen? Like you said you started kind of later on in life. A friend introduced you to it. Were you like an actor before, or did you go to theater school, or did you do
No,
anything like that
absolutely
that
not.
that kind of lends itself to being in this kind of scene?
Not even a little bit. Not even close. I hate it when people pay attention to me. But I was working for a TTRPG company, not Die Hard, one I worked for before them, and I was setting up back in the very beginning of the pandemic. I was setting up their streaming, and I
Mhm.
was trying to create some content specifically for them. And B. Dave Walters happened to be a contact of the company, and I started putting together some things with him, which I can't express to anyone how lucky I feel that my first streaming experience was with B. Dave Walters.
That's
And not only that,
that's crazy.
but we kept doing that for like 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer, before his schedule couldn't really accommodate it, and I left that company, and it was like a whole big thing. Um, but yeah, so with the B. Dave Walters' World of Darkness New York series, we went through all of the different variations in the World of Darkness, and we played them all set in New York, where the plot lines would interact, and that was a very comfortable way to experience it because, first of all, B. Dave Walters is one of my best friends. I adore him, but I was also playing with my now husband, um,
Mhm.
my best friend Emily, and just a couple of other cool people in the community. My really close friend Mason. Like, it was a very cozy environment to get used to it, so I didn't
Right.
mind looking silly.
Yeah. You
Which I
felt
think is
comfortable.
exactly. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle in role playing is people are afraid that they're going to look foolish.
Mhm.
Which I got to tell you guys, I make money looking pretty stupid. So
Hey, if it brings people in, right? If it brings people in.
exactly.
Now, okay. Um, Growing up in the TTRPG world and stuff like that. Now you've kind of jumped in a little bit later, but you have probably had more experience than a lot of other people because you've done this a lot. The hobby in its own, the TTRPG hobby world is
Mhm.
very polarizing, I feel. Because honestly, TTRPGs are constantly changing from the time of their inception to now. They're 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 just constantly updating. So on one side, you have a loving community of people, just amazing people. Like just look at chat right now. Like loving community of people that are accepting of change and welcome diversity in many of the IPs that they follow. Be it D&D or be it whatever. And then on the other side, you have people that are really adamant that the makers of the games that they play got it right on the first time, on the first go round, and like to stick with what's given to them. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but this does tend to include that the subtle racism or sexism that were kind of built into the systems of old, back in the day, the original like TTRPGs. Now,
Mm-hmm.
whether that was apparent or just subtly sprinkled in throughout the systems or whatever, that all just depended on the day of the week. But getting into this system now, or getting into the TTRPG world now, did you ever find yourself having any obstacles while getting into it? um did you have any obstacles that you had to overcome personally, uh uh, getting into the TTRPG world, or even just trying to like really say, is this something that is worth it?
Yes, and I still have that on a daily basis. You know, being a woman in the TTRPG space is not the easiest thing in the world, especially because a lot of publishers and a lot of creators out there are very much that old school mentality. Which again, there's nothing wrong with. It's just not my game style. It's not my play style. The most frequent uh, issue that I faced was, I went to a lot of conventions in 2019. I went to a lot. Um, and there was always a couple of instances every show where you would have someone come up and say, "Do you even play D&D?" And you would say, "Yes, of course I do. I have a tiefling bard who blah 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 blah." And then that person will immediately go into, "Okay, so the thing about D&D is," and try and explain the game to you. Which I mean, it's just like anything else. It is an obstacle if you give it the ability to affect you. And I am very fortunate in the fact that I am surrounded by people who are like-minded and who don't bring a lot of those mentalities into the game.
Mhm.
But there's also an opportunity there. Um, you know, I feel like even as recently as, 12 calendar months ago, 18 calendar months ago, we had substantially fewer female GMs out there who are making public content and being showcased as that public content.
Yep.
But we have Jasmine Bueller and we have a Bria and we have so many wonderful um, female role players coming out into the scene now and being supported by not only the community itself but also some of those larger IPs and those larger outlets
Mhm.
for mainstream D&D content. Um which, a Bria GMing on the Critical Role channel is a huge thing and we should absolutely celebrate that. Jasmine GMing on D&D Beyond is absolutely a huge thing and we should celebrate that. So the more we challenge that kind of behavior when it comes up, maybe not in an aggressive way, but just say, "Hey, yeah, no, I absolutely know about D&D. Tell me about your GMing style." Instead of being rightfully offended by those interactions, the further we're going to get and the more middle ground we're going to find. Because yes, we're polarized, but ultimately we're all here because we love a game.
Mhm. Right. Right. I mean, and
So,
that's going to be a central ground between everybody, but you have to, I think picking and choosing your fights comes a long way when it comes to that kind of material. Um, there is an aggressive side of things. Things can get pretty aggressive when it comes to um, people being on the opposite side of it. So people that are getting involved in it that are basically, the ones being talked about. If it's racist or sexist or something like that. Being a female in the TTRPG world, it's difficult to sidestep and let it kind of blow over your shoulder and stuff like that when you are the target of conversation. And so it's difficult to really, I guess, say whether or not it's where I'm trying to say this without like getting into it, but basically what you had said previously about how we are making strides constantly in the world of the world of TTRPGs and
Mhm.
inclusion and stuff like that. I think that it's a wonderful thing that we are getting bigger shows and more eyes on the individuals that need that. The individuals that have been kind of shunted off at the beginning, they are now being put in the limelight and being like, look, we are part of this institution as well. We are part of this world, this hobby, and we are just as valid as everybody else. And that's where I think I think a lot of great individuals are starting to come to limelight. Like you had mentioned, like all those names and everything like that. I was talking to Jorge from TTRP Gifts last week, I think 2 weeks ago, um, about having more females in GM or DM positions in the TTRPG world. And I think that was like one of my main goals, I think, in like whenever Nat 1on1 was in its creation, was like I would love to seat more females in our games, period.
I mean, femmes are always gonna have a harder time, in that particular in anything public facing, um, than we originally expect, right? Like, it's the whole "your titties are stealing my views," like that whole mentality. I think I killed Dan. Like, we're femmes are always going to have a harder time with that, but I think ultimately, I you can't fight those battles on your own. It is really where we're getting at, and, it's you seeking out a femme to fill a seat and check some kind of arbitrary box isn't the way that we should be going, right? One of the biggest pieces that's the biggest piece really that is most important to me when I'm putting together any kind of content is table composition. So more important than um, some kind of you know, representational person that I bring in or anything like that. I want that table to work well together. And
Mhm.
a table is only going to tell a really compelling story with lots of depth and lots of different point of view if we have people from different backgrounds and different nationalities and different life experiences coming together.
Right.
So it is 100% self-serving to create that diverse table, but never do it with the expectation of just checking a box and creating representation for the sake of creating representation.
Right.
You should be
Tokenism.
doing it because it diversifies and makes a richer story.
Right. You never want to run up against the wall and just create tokenism just to be like, okay, we filled the seat of, a
Exactly.
Mexican individual, or we filled the seat of, we have a girl in the game. That kind of stuff should never be on the mind of whoever is creating the game to begin with. I totally agree.
Correct. Yeah.
So going back to the fact that you've really been a part of a lot of TTRPG creation, did you have a career path outside of TTRPGs before you found your way into the world? What was your like main focus?
So before TTRPGs, wow. So before TTRPGs, I worked in banking.
Hmm.
I was a bank manager for many years. I had also just finished up my undergraduate degree in psychology, and I was literally at my oh my gosh, what is it called? My apprenticeship for my master's program in art therapy when I got the call about working for a dice company and literally left that apprenticeship to drive back to Indianapolis and take a stab at that. So yeah, I had another path in mind, um, that was very different.
What
Like, wildly, truly different.
what made you
I was
take
gonna
that
be an art
leap?
therapist.
What made you take that leap to be like, you know what? I've been working all these years on all this stuff, but then I got an opportunity. And what just allowed you to make that big turn? Yeah, like that's like a 90-degree turn, the other or a
Yeah,
180
it
degree
was a
turn.
big one. It was a big one. Is oh man. As juvenile and reckless as it may seem, a lot of it was honestly justice. Um I got the opportunity to leave my current situation and go work with him, and that turned out to be the best singular decision of my whole life. So there's that, but I mean, ultimately, it was the opportunity to try and do something I loved as a career.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not something that everybody gets. Um, so to me, it was 100% worth just kind of throwing the plan out the window and giving it a shot. Um, but I will give Stash at least 65% of the credit
Okay.
for
All
that
right.
decision ultimately.
Well, hey, we all thank Stash because then now we have you. So, you wouldn't be here on the show, on the about TTRPGs had you stayed in the banking slash, a
No, I
psych
wouldn't.
psych art world. Yeah.
There would be a lot of things that would be different.
so, um, so your first job in the industry, that was a dice company, huh?
Mhm. Yeah, oh man, I don't know how much I should really share here. I ran the warehouse out of my living room for a little while before I
Mm.
really started going to shows a lot and doing a lot of those things, and then I moved into more of a social media and marketing position there.
So it was kind of like
Um,
a more like a promotional, like you were all promotion kind of their stuff.
no, no, I was working for the company. I was doing all the fulfillment in the beginning.
Ah, okay, okay.
And then it moved more into the media side of things, which
Mm,
is where I actually found that I really loved engaging with the community and
hmm.
seeing what projects people were working on. Um, and then after that, I freelanced for a while, doing that for a few different companies, and then Die Hard Dice.
Yep, yep. So speaking of your now husband, Stash or Justice, um, you guys created a company called Bard and Barbarian,
Yeah.
a brand that's basically focusing on everything nerdy, from like actual plays to merch, dice, and I remember before even knowing who you were. I mean, like little baby Dan, who was like, "I want to try TTRPGs." I was already a dice goblin. So I was
Mhm.
already like, I already knew who like Die Hard Dice was. I already knew who everybody was. I had already known who Bard and Barbarian was before I knew who you guys were. So I remember entering a little contest you guys had. I think it was on Twitter. I think it might have even been on Facebook. I think it was on Facebook. Before I even had a Twitter, I had Facebook, and I entered into that contest to where you basically had to name your dice set. You guys had a,
Yep.
a metal dice set that you had.
Uh-huh.
And I still remember what I had come up for you. So
What did you submit?
so
I'm
yeah,
curious.
Bard and Barbarian, if you don't know, Bard and Barbarian, a lot of their stuff has to do with both being a bard and or barbarian, and like, combining the two in whatever way. I think it's like a harp and an axe, or
Yep.
am I right?
A,
Yeah,
a,
okay.
a liar and an
A
axe. Yeah.
lyre and an axe, yep.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of their stuff. So I was thinking, okay, what's a really good way, quit aging yourself. I'm not. I there's like the dice that has the lyre and an axe on the actual dice themselves. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, what can I do to combine the two? And I love barbarians to begin with. As a matter of fact, I have like a barbarian character I played. I loved. Um, I think it was a discordant melody.
That was
Is
one that Justice loved.
discordant melody, because discordant, because like the raging and everything's like it doesn't make sense, it's all kind of crazy noises, but there,
Mhm.
it's a melody, it's a song of some sort. So discordant melody was what I had put. So
Yeah, we got some really good answers for that. We got some really
it
good
was
ones.
really fun, it was really fun. And I came later on to know that you were like behind it all, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you guys, I love your
Yep,
stuff. So yeah.
that's my little baby company.
So speaking of, what made you want to open your own business like that? You've been a part of the industry already.
Yep.
What made you want to open your own?
Um, so if I'm being 100% honest, it's probably just because Justice and I wanted stuff, and we enjoy making cool things. And we saw the opportunity to do it for ourselves. We have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of friends inside the industry. So
Right.
you'll notice any chance we get, we always talk about Elderwood Academy and how much we
Mhm.
love them. They are spectacular folks who make amazing designs. And we will never not support them in anything that they choose to do. But the owners there were good friends of ours from our time at previous dice company that shall
Right.
not be named, and we were like, hey, so we're starting our own little thing, just kind of for funsies. Honestly, that was it. Like we did it for fun to occupy our time and kind
Hmm.
of just give ourselves an outlet for some joy. In the early months of the pandemic, when it felt like the entire world was falling apart, because up until that point we were home maybe a week out of every month at most. So to go from
Wow.
that and all this travel
Hmm.
to suddenly being trapped in our house,
Yeah.
we were like, okay, well, we'll just design some cool stuff, and this will take up a bunch of my time so that I don't have nervous energy. Um, so really, it was kind of to keep our sanity.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think that's a great way to start something. I mean, if you have like an all in, you know what I mean? If you have like a instead of like, tinkering here and there and like kind of going back and back to it every once in a while and stuff like that, and slowly building it up over time, I think really being able to jump into it like you guys did, it's great. It worked out wonderfully. Um, Now, being that you have run Bard and Barbarian for quite some time, has running Bard and Barbarian taught you anything about the industry that you didn't already know from your past experiences working for somebody else?
It's it's given more of an insight into the actual cost of getting any particular thing made. We did a lot of very small batch local stuff as much as we could, but there were some things that we did have to go to larger manufacturing for in that process. Um, and so learning some of those pitfalls, that was a part of the business side of things that I hadn't really experienced before.
Yeah.
Dealing with material components not necessarily being what you expected, and a design just not working out the right way, and communication barriers and shipping issues and everything else therein. It complicates your life a little bit, but it's it has certainly taught me to operate with more grace when
Right.
it comes to dealing with other businesses and dealing with individuals. Um,
Justice
y-
has said that the pet toys were a particular
oh
nightmare.
my fucking god.
How you
Um,
care to elaborate? What exactly makes a pet toy that difficult
that
comparatively?
was my question. That was my question, Dan.
What's so
So
hard?
so we went into this process. We at the time we had my dog Hodor,
Love
who
it, by the way.
he
Love
is
that name.
he's my child. I'm that weirdo. And now we have another dog, Lima Bean. But at the time we were like, ooh, we want to make some geeky pet toys. And my best friend had cats, so I'm not a cat person, but I was like, okay, well, we're gonna represent both parts of that community. We'll make an axe and a lyre as both a dog toy and a pet toy. And that way you can turn your pet into a little bard or a barbarian, whatever you want to do. Um, so that process went back and forth so much, like needlessly so, because the design was done.
Right.
The design is part of our logo. It already existed.
Mhm.
It took maybe 3 months for us to actually get the thing done because the samples ended up costing 3 times what we had originally been
Oh
quoted.
god.
And then there was a printing fee that they didn't tell us about, so they changed the order quantity without mentioning anything, which made it like twice as expensive in the end. It was a whole big rigmarole. And ultimately, why we didn't do more pet toys after that, because
Yeah,
I was just
right.
like, I can't do this.
So what you're
Um,
saying is everybody go to the website, buy all their pet toys that you
do
have.
it.
I think I have a picture in the slideshow of one of the kitty cats playing with the pet toys. Yeah, it's cute. It's adorable. There was like you said, an axe and a lyre, like
They're
kind of
little
plushy
catnip
toys.
toys too. So like
Oh, that's
literally your
awesome.
your cat will turn into a fucking barbarian
Oh yeah.
immediately. It's great.
That's great. That's so cool. Okay, kind of rolling back to what we were talking about before about Dungeons and Dragons kind of being the gateway drug into
Mhm.
TTRPGs. Critical Role. has been a massive, massive thing here in the TTRPGs. And it's brought a massive influx of new players and new people into the world that had no idea what D&D was previously, or they were just kind of like on the edge of like, oh, I kind of want to play, but I don't know, if it's kind of my thing. It's brought a lot of people in, but it's been like an umbrella of Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I know you are an expert at playing other systems as well, but I have to know, are you a critter yourself?
So I'm a critter in that I like Critical Role. I am not a critter in that I can commit 5 hours of my life every Thursday night to staying up late and watching the live streams, which means that I usually inevitably end up watching the seasons after they're complete
Mhm.
because I want to have had time to forget all the spoilers.
Yeah.
So yes, uh, but also I will not claim critterdom in the extreme.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the thing. I
I'm
think
a fake critter gal.
no, there's no way. No way. Here's the thing. I think if you enjoy Critical Role for what it is, being that you enjoy their role play, being that you enjoy, their interactions between each other and how they play and stuff like that, and you enjoy the story and you watch it just for fun, you're a critter. It doesn't matter how you watch it, doesn't matter when you watch it, you're good. So yeah, you're a critter. Have you had a chance though to see the new animated show that just came out? Now it's like I think they have 3 episodes out now. I'm not sure if they have more. I haven't seen
Nope,
it.
more will come this Friday.
Okay, yeah. So
Yes, I have watched it through twice.
how in the hell have we gone from this show that, was being played at home to now having an animated show on Amazon? And how fucking cool is it that we are in the limelight, let alone B. Dave Walters on G4 being put on actual television? Now we have
So cool.
a
It's
live,
just so cool.
yeah, right? We have an actual cartoon series that is being put out there for TTRPGs.
I think ultimately the biggest thing that Critical Role did for the TTRPG space in general is it showed that this silly game can be used to tell some truly impactful stories. And that's definitely not the norm, right? That's you're
Oh, for
not
sure. You don't play
I don't make
Monopoly and
people
get
cry
like
in my
some.
games, I don't think. And I'm okay with that.
Oh, I thought you
Um
meant in games.
no, I make people cry in real life. I
She
if
actually makes people
anything,
cry in Monopoly.
I literally make people cry. It's my thing. That's not true. I'm a marshmallow. But I think it's sort of shown people who maybe were on the fence or who really just hadn't had any experience interacting with the tabletop space in general.
Mhm.
It showed them that hey, this is a story you can tell with your friends. Yes, there's math involved, but there are so many tools to make that math more digestible for you.
Right.
Um, and I think it's created this space for a lot of accessibility tools that didn't exist pre-critical role to find their footing. All of these additional virtual tabletop simulators and things like that, things like D&D Beyond and Roll20 that kind of do the math for you. Um, there are so many more tools now to actually sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons, and now there are starter kits, so you don't have to do the initial like 3-hour investment to make your
Right.
first character by hand. Um, if I have no idea how I've watched this process occur because usually I would think that this would be like a 10-year long thing to get from point A where
Right, right.
it's, Matt Mercer in his dining room leading this game for his friends because
Yep.
it's Liam's birthday
Yep, yep.
to now where we have this Amazon series. But it is powerful storytelling. And at its base, that's what tabletop games are. Um Now, I will say that one of the things I have always talked about because it is wildly important when you're thinking of this concept of tabletop RPG content, the game that you sit down and play with your friends at the kitchen table is not the same game as the one that you stream to, your viewers. It's not the same game. You don't lead it the same way. Your players aren't going to behave the same way. it is intended to be an experience for someone who has no direct impact on what is happening in game. Um, so in a way, I feel like we've almost created two different but still parallel communities
Right.
as far as D&D and tabletop goes. Um, but it's been an incredible journey to watch things grow, and I just want more D&D on TV. I just want more.
I want other stuff other than D&D. I mean, I want other TTRPGs to get a break and be like, hey, I want a cyberpunk show that I can fucking watch. And I think they're coming out with a cyberpunk show on Netflix soon, which is like based off of like the Cyberpunk 2077 world. So I'm ready for that kind of stuff. That's super in my wheelhouse. I love me some cyberpunk. So super excited about that. Now, speaking of that, I know that you are a aficionado of other tabletop RPGs.
I wouldn't say aficionado.
Well,
but go ahead.
I would say that you are relevantly involved in other TTRPGs enough to where I could ask you this. I probably know the answer, but what is your favorite TTRPG out there right now that isn't D&D?
I'm curious as to what you think my answer is.
Well, okay. Mine is based off of very much assumptions, but also based off of, you know, it's on your profile a lot. Is it Vampire? Is it Vampire the Masquerade?
Yes, but also no.
Okay.
So I love my vampire game. I love storytelling. I think that Vampire the Masquerade is probably my most favoritist game to run for sure.
Okay.
Mainly because it is so wildly different from D&D. But my favorite system, is Call of Cthulhu. 100%.
Ooh.
Problematic origins, but just a great system. You know, you learn by failing in that game, which is very much like life. I like rolling percentile dice. I don't think they get enough love, and it's just spooky. I love spooky.
That's great. No, I love spooky too. Believe me, half my games, well, 90% of my games, they all have like a little spooky kind of stuff kind of slipped in somewhere.
Spooky.
Yeah. So speaking of different kind of systems and or I guess creators, are there any? I know your husband and you on your show. What if? What are some Kickstarters that you guys or you in particular are super excited about or curious about?
It's a long list.
Sure.
It's a long
Is there
list.
any like top 3?
So Seeds of Decay is really interesting to me right now. I love the way that they have that set up. It's from Hit Point Press. It's it's like this sort of microcosm that they've created where it's the woods and there's decay that's sort of attacking, and you can be all kinds of different like creature folk, which is a big thing. It's very well done. It's very polished. The other one that I'd say is really catching my eye right now, Disaster Hamsters, looks like just a lot of fun.
I see them all the time on Twitter, and I'm just like, that is one of the funniest like premises.
It's almost done. Like the what they've built there is incredible. It makes me very sad that it's so far from its funding goals still right now. So
Yeah.
Disaster Hamsters, go check it out. You can make
It's
an
the second
NPC.
edition, right? The second take on this?
But they're adding so much to it. They're doing maps and a mini adventure and all kinds of extra stuff.
Yeah.
Those two I think are probably the two that I'm super stoked about right now. But basically anytime a a ghost or ghost hunting RPG is ever released, I will talk about it too. There was one called the Deepman Files that released last year that I have here. It just got delivered.
Oh, nice.
I still haven't had the chance to play it. That I'm stoked about. There's Habits of the Common House Ghost. Anything with ghosties, I'm all about too.
That's awesome. I mean, I honestly, I don't. The thing that I think I lack in is my ability to follow just all the different Kickstarters. Like I can follow, or I only necessarily like my brain can like remember only so much. And Kickstarters is like, for some reason, it's like I can never remember, one, the name of Kickstarters, or two, my pocketbook would not allow me to support as many of the Kickstarters that I want to. And so I have just abstained from Kickstarter altogether because because I know if I go there and spend money on one,
It's a trap.
I'm like, okay, if I'm getting this one, then I'm gonna have to get this one because I really want this one as well.
Well, but here's some business advice for you. It's all tax deductible.
True. Very
It's
true.
all research.
You're right. You're right. So, I mean, it is now, but it wasn't back then. So, speaking of business, I love that transition you gave me there.
You know, I do what I can. I'm here. Help me help you.
So, a lot of people are trying to get into the TTRPG world as a business and turning their love or turning their hobby into something they can profit from. Now, be it an actual play live show, podcast, productions, writing, artwork, creating of dice or products that can be bought and stuff like that. There's a whole plethora of things that they can get into. But one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot when it comes to this stuff about the business side of it is the reality of how much things cost. Whenever people have this like wonderful grass is greener on the other side idea of I want to start creating in the TTRPG world. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but I'm just going to jump right in kind of thing. I just recently turned Nat 1on1 into an LLC business. And I'll say this to anybody getting into the business, do that. Create whatever you're doing and you want to make it a business, make it a business, make it legit. And I broke it down to where my money goes. And I have a list here, just a short list of just some of the things that can be paid for, should be paid for a lot of them. In the production of one of my shows, like Running Feywild, for instance. For me, it always starts with character artwork. I love supporting artists, period. I can draw, and if it came down to it, I could draw a character for, my shows, but I love supporting other people because that's what they do and that they do it specifically and they do it wonderfully. So getting character art commissioned, and that can run anywhere along the lines of how well you want your character art to look, how much you have prepared, or how much you're prepared to pay for the entire package, depending on how many players you have, all that stuff. Commissioning custom music so you can avoid copyright issues, or if you don't commission the music yourself, buying the rights to the music so that you can use it during the stream. Commissioning intro and outro and layout work for if you live stream your games like we do Running Feywild. Live stream production if you want to pay somebody to do, screen transitions, or, you want to take care of the technical issues that happen on stream and you just want to sit there and DM, you got to pay a producer to do all that stuff. Pay your players. That's one of the things that I'm getting into now as a professional. Instead of being paid as the DM, I am now producing the show and getting money from outside sources. I can now pay my players. That is one thing that I will say that people should look towards doing once you create a place for people to come and play. Social media and advertising, setting out to make sure people see your work. Post-production and editing. Your work might look great live streamed, but if you want to take it to a podcast, you're going to have to edit it. You're going to have to make it sound good. One thing I didn't mention on my list: websites. If you want to have a website for your production or your company or your show or whatever, that also costs money. Podcast costs money. There's a lot of stuff. Now, with all that said, Diana, I know I've been talking for an hour. Would you add anything to said list, being that you are also a part of these things, but on a different kind of part of it?
Yeah, so you're right on the money with everything that straight up just needs to happen, right? Like this was my diatribe on Twitter this morning, so it's timely. Um I think the biggest piece of this for me, and you put the parentheses around this at the very beginning of like, for those of us who are wanting to turn this into a business,
Mm-hmm.
don't expect to make any money ever. Like honestly, don't expect to make money with your actual plays because the reality is that even when you have sponsorship dollars, straight up cash that companies are handing you to do things, even when you have that resource at your disposal, you're not even going to come close to breaking even. Not even close. Unless you are a huge production, right? Last year when all of those numbers got released by Twitch for how much
Right, right.
revenue people were generating,
Yeah,
and everyone was all taken aback by how much money Critical Role brings in. Well, yeah, you have no idea how expensive it is to put out something of that quality. I mean, same thing goes for Dimension 20. All of those big productions that have thousands of viewers when they go live, Black Dice Society, all of those things cost an obscene amount of money to make. And to go into an actual play expecting to make a profit, frankly, is kind of ludicrous. Um, uh, I will be the first person to tell you that I don't make any money. We lose a lot of money, but we do this because we enjoy it. I am fortunate enough in that the work that I do for corporate partners allows me to offset the losses that we have on Bard and Barbarian, so it all kind of evens out in the end. But you know,
so the question arises, you bring up a good point because you're absolutely right when it comes to live plays don't really make money.
mhm.
Here's my question to kind of like be the voice of the audience or maybe devil's advocate. What's the point? What's the point then? If you are going to put all this money into something and lose a bunch of money on your investment, what's the point?
It's what we love to do. I discovered my love of storytelling. Um, you know, uh, Closer to the beginning of the pandemic, frankly. I fell in love with it. And especially, here we are 2.5 years later, 3 years later. We still can't safely go places and hang out with people and see our friends. And, um, you know, I like storytelling. So I love doing that for my friends. And frankly, I think that I am better suited to doing it in that more public facing way
Mhm.
than doing it at a home table. If I'm being honest, I have way more experience doing the former than the latter.
Right.
Um, so I think you really have to love it. Is the bottom line. I've been fortunate enough that I have met some of my closest friends streaming and playing games. Never met him in person. I have never met B Dave in person, and he's one of the most important people in my life. I I met you through your streaming work and my work at Die Hard Dice.
Right.
Um, to be frank, this is how we interact with people now. This is how we make friends.
Right.
Rafiki, if he's still in chat, is one of the people who I love and adore most in the world. I love watching his projects and watching him flourish, and he and I are getting to work together on things now. Arden Audio, Paula, is amazing. Amazing. She saw some streaming work I did and came and we met at PAX Unplugged, and I adore them and the artwork that they make. This is how we build our social circles now. So I love telling stories, which means that the work isn't really all that much work for me. I like learning new skills, so playing around in Adobe After Effects and Photoshop was really
Mhm.
good for me. Um, I never feel like I cannot be producing something. So if I'm producing something for myself, I feel much better about relaxing at the end of the day. It's got to be a passion project.
Hands down. Hands down. Absolutely. If you
If
come
it's not, you're going to have a bad time.
you're gonna have a
You're
bad
going to have a bad
You're
time.
gonna be the people like that order a bunch of drinks just because you're having fun during the thing, but you didn't expect to spend money, and then by the end of it, you get the receipt and you have a
And you're like,
big
"Oh
ass
shit."
bill. Oh,
Yeah.
uh-oh. Yeah, that's definitely for sure. You have to have that passion, and
And
without it, go ahead.
beyond the financial ramifications, I feel that this is so important to put out there because truly to me it is a far larger cost is the the stress level that you will have. You know, I'm sure it still happens to me all the time. You know, the moment before you hit that go live button is always just kind of like this
Or the
big
moment you hit the go live button like today.
suck of, or if you stream onto someone else's channel accidentally. Not like that's happened recently at all. Like there's what it does to your nerves and your I, sense of self-worth frankly is hard. It
Mhm.
is hard sometimes to work really hard on something and put it out there and to have it fall into a void and never see the light of day. um but you know, the best piece of streaming advice I ever got for anything was you know, you say you only have 3 viewers, but imagine if 3 people were in the room with you watching
Yeah, I
you
saw that.
doing whatever you were
Yeah,
doing.
I saw that.
Like that's not an insignificant thing.
Right.
So you really gotta love it because it's gonna beat you right in the wallet and right in the feels.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. Now, we can talk about the negative aspects of it and everything like that. And to be honest, it's not all negative. It
No.
especially is fulfilling once you're in the moment and past the moment. It can be nerve-wracking, it can be costly, but in the end, it is worth it to those who are passionate about it.
Mhm.
Um, with expenditures comes possible sources of income, though. And
Yep.
I would like to talk about how individuals can turn not necessarily a profit, but can turn that huge loss of money, that a massive money that they probably spent on production or getting that stream out there,
Mhm.
into a little bit less of a punch to the wallet. Now,
Sure.
there are different ways you can do that in terms of like basic donations. I see a lot of people out, especially on Twitter, promoting their coffee or Kofi or whatever, however you pronounce it, thing.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Or Patreon. If you have a show, if you have like a production show for like Nat 1 Fun, or if you have a specific show for Running Fey Wild, that kind of stuff. Straight up donations. People are willing to give to you to receive your content if it's
Mhm.
good, if it's worth their time. If they like it, they'll give you money. Now, is it a lot of money? No, but it is a little bit of something to kind of maybe, maybe buy a burger every once in a while. Now, some other stuff that you can kind of turn into a profit, or at least get a little bit of respite from the attack of all the money that
Respite.
yeah is sponsorships and affiliates. Now, I will say this as a creator, I have only been in the system for about a year and a half. Sponsorships are almost impossible to come by
Yep.
unless you are on like a larger aspect, or people, people or something like that. If you know people in the industry, or if you are trusted by people that are higher up and stuff like that, and they know that you are going to put out a good product, then sponsorships will come at you. But affiliateships come pretty easy. Now, I
Yep.
say that because and this is talking with Diana about or I'm sorry, about Die Hard Dice, and even Justice with 1985 Games. Affiliateships are basically almost like 100% risk free to the company, because they don't have to give you any money. What they do is basically they give you some kind of code, or they give you whatever, and you promote their work for free because they are not paying you to promote their work. But whatever you get income wise from whatever you are being sponsored for, or I'm sorry, affiliated for, then you get a little kickback from whatever it is. Which essentially means that the company gets free advertising for their goods, and they get to, get some money from whatever they purchase through your stuff. So affiliateships are great. Go out and just ask. That's the biggest thing. Go out and say like, hey, I'm doing a thing. Is there any way we can talk about, a possible affiliation with you guys? And I'm telling you, that's where you're going to get a lot of people interested in your work. Sponsorships, not so much. Don't go out there expecting that somebody's going to give you $1,000 and be like, yeah, we'll give you $1,000, and you just put our name on the screen. That kind of thing.
The the biggest piece that I can suggest in terms of working with companies is make sure that you're working with companies that you align with, right?
Right.
Um, you know, I will be the first person to tell you, for very obvious, I feel like, reasons, The Die Hard Dice affiliate program is not set up like other affiliate programs intentionally. We want to alleviate that whole idea of this is free advertising for the company. Um, and we're very careful about the folks that we work with because it is designed specifically just to help creators.
Right.
And the bottom line is that TTRPGs as a whole don't have a lot of extra money to just throw around unless we're talking about huge companies. Um, especially right now when there aren't as many conventions. When we saw a dip in sales last year, when people are still losing their jobs, people are still being laid off. And now costs to those companies are going up as far as shipping in general, not just international, but shipping in general. The production of books
Mm-hmm.
is skyrocketing.
Yep.
There are going to be shortages in basically every single type of manufacturing for the foreseeable future. And this isn't like a short run problem. This is something that's only going to get worse in the short term. It's not good. There's even less money now to throw around at those straight cash
Yeah.
sponsorships than there was last year. And of course the company wants to see a return on an investment when they're just shelling out money to people.
I that
That's the goal.
right.
It's the affiliate ships are what you make of them. In a general, like broad strokes, not just Die Hard Dice. In general, they are what you make of them. And the one thing that every company is looking for with those affiliates is passion, which is like it's the common denominator in everything that we're talking about here. Dan, I have said this to you within the last week. You are one of the most dedicated individuals to creating a quality product that I've ever met in this industry.
Oh.
And that I doubt that's come through in a $20,000 scholar or like sponsorship in the time that we've like since we've talked about it. But that kind of passion is what's going to serve you well in the next year
Right.
of Nat 1 Fun, in the next 2 years of Nat 1 Fun. You,
I'll
it sounds
the
so,
check is
you
in the
got to
mail, by
keep
the way.
throwing that
Thanks for saying that.
spaghetti. Say that again.
I said the check's in the mail, by the way. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. You have to keep throwing that spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it's going to work out, unfortunately. Now, I will say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So ask for a sponsorship first and give them the affiliate ship as backup.
100%. Yes, absolutely. And that's I think that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn as an individual in the TTRPG world. Just as Dan himself, I don't like asking for handouts. I don't like asking for money for things.
No one does. It
Right.
never feels good.
It doesn't, right? And so when you go to a company, it's just like, "Hi guys," and it's very it's never very upfront. And you should be kind about it. You shouldn't be, like, "Hey, give me money because we're going to be really good." Or you
Yeah, that won't work. I'm telling you right now.
Right. Or you shouldn't lie about what to expect, right? You can't be like, "Hey, we expect to have like 50 to 60 people live viewing our show. This is going to be the greatest show that you've ever seen on Twitch or like, in podcast form." And then you go back and like look at their catalog of stuff they've done and you've got like, one or two people watching or, stuff that doesn't add up to what their expectations are and stuff like that. So you can't lie. You got to be nice and you got to be kind and you got to really play the game. And the thing is the more passionate you are about your stuff, the more realistic it's going to come through. And that's just the way that's the way it works. And like you said, you only get what you take shots at. And so if you don't ask, you won't receive. Don't expect people to come to you and be like, "Dan, we saw what you did. We're going to give you $300 and it's going to be amazing." No, that's not the way it works. Okay.
Yeah, like in a perfect world, yes.
Right.
The thing that has always helped me feel better, and to give you guys context, right now, this is our like the Bolton Rampart series that's coming up is our first actual like sponsored show. And it's a charity show. I
Yeah,
asked for the money because I wanted to pay my players. That's it.
Boom.
Oh, hey, there it is. Cool. But uh, you know, focus on the growth points that you can actually control. You can't control who's going to be able to give you money. You can't control who's going to use your affiliate link. What you can control is the way that you present that information to your fans, to your viewers. To say, "Hey guys, you know what? If you feel like buying some dice this weekend, head over to Die Hard Dice and use my code. It really helps me as a creator to make more cool stuff. Um, and you'll get some cool stuff out of it. You'll love your dice, guaranteed, or whatever it is. You can control how often and how passionately those messages enter the world. You can't control who actually follows through on it. And you're going to run yourself right into the ground if you are placing your personal happiness and your feelings of fulfillment and success on other people. You
Right.
cannot do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also comparing yourselves to other people's success is also a road to just digging yourself a deep hole.
And I'm in 100% honesty. I get a lot of sponsorship requests because that's part of what I do for Die
Right.
Hard
Yeah,
Dice.
yeah.
And the success that you see out there, I guarantee you, if you were to name some names, they're still in the red for their productions. I promise you, 100%. Um, Success is perceived, but you don't know what's going on behind the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Exactly.
never know.
Exactly. So running through a few things real quick so we can kind of come to a
Dan's sick of talking to me. He says,
no, no,
"Shut
no,
the
no, no. I want to
fuck
get to the Q&A because I think we have a lot of people that are wanting to ask some questions here. Talking about really quick about like the different types of income. We talked about sponsorships, Ko-Fi, Patreon, and stuff like that. If you live stream on Twitch, you can get, subscriptions and donations and stuff like that while you stream that might be able to go straight to, whatever the production of the show is. Um, I've even heard of people applying for grants through your state, like art grants for
which is
whatever.
great. That's something I hadn't considered.
Yep, I had no idea about that. Thank you,
It's a brilliant
Dot. By
idea.
the way, Dot and someone else said it, and I'll have to think about it later. But yeah, it brought it back to my attention, and I was like, oh my god, that's so true. And then last but not least, for what I can think of at least, crowdfunding a project before it even starts. So if you have, let's say, a already a group of people or a community that you've built, be it in TTRPG world or wherever, starting a fund to make like a pool of money that you can use to be like, okay, now we have, let's say, $1,000 or $1,500 to throw at the project before it even starts. That's a wonderful way of doing it as well, before taking that leap and just going straight into it and not knowing at all how much the end project is going to cost you, like negative
But that
wise.
way you have something to start with.
Right, exactly. Having that little bit of something to start
Yeah.
with is always good. So lastly, straying away from like numbers and finances and everything like that, for someone that is starting up, is there any advice that you'd give them that might lead them down a more successful road? Now, this is like starting up in any kind of TTRPG business wise.
Talk to people who've done it. You know, the, these interviews, I'm not specifically saying mine or anything, but these interviews that people do, um, you know, there are lots of people in the industry that you should go and listen to because they've done a good job with themselves personally and their content.
Right.
People like Dot, people like B Dave, people like um Andrew Stother, like there are so many people that you can go and say, okay, that's a great idea. I wish I'd known that 6 months ago when I was starting this stuff out.
100%.
Um, so and if you have a question, ask it, ask it, ask it. Um, you're it's going to be a toss up 50-50 on how much information you get back is actually useful and beneficial, but this community loves seeing other people's work. We love sharing the love. It's one of the things that's been consistent in the whole time I've been doing this. Um, you know, it, we like interacting with each other. So if you ask a question, you're probably going to get the answer that's going to help you most right there in the comments section. Now, you'll probably get a couple trolls too, but you learn to live with that. Um, you know, leading them down a more successful road, don't pay attention to the numbers. That's I know it seems like the most important and most measurable form of success, but don't look at the numbers. Um, you are going to grow naturally if you keep at it and you keep the energy up. Um, viewership doesn't always reflect that.
Right.
Followership doesn't always reflect that. Income doesn't always reflect that, unfortunately. Um, and if it's what you're meant to do, the opportunities will come your way.
So I would love to piggyback on some of that. And I would say some of the most important things that I've learned growing up from like just turning, doing that one fun as a fun thing to really trying to make it into a business. One is collaborating, using your efforts of like trying to, stream or like run different games or maybe do interviews like this and stuff like that. Um, the more you collaborate, the more you get your name out there, the more that people know about you, the more likely it is that people are going to want to return back to you, or at least be like, oh, wait, that name rings a bell. And then we'll continue to go through with it. So collaboration. Two, go to conventions when it's safe or if it's safe. Accordingly, of course, it being that it's very much a gray zone right now, but go to conventions because I have only gone to one convention in my entire life.
You went to the right one.
And I went to the right one apparently. Um, I went to not Gen Con, PAX,
PAX
Unplugged last year. And all of you, if you watch the show, if you've been part of that one fun, you understand and you know. But I went to PAX Unplugged, and I met more people in the industry there than I have in my year and a half of just trying to do everything that I can to get into the industry. And from there, getting all the business cards that I could possibly get and talking to everybody I could about what Nat 1 Fun is and also what I could do and everything like that, and also what they do, and collaborating face to face has proved the most important step in my career so far, as a content creator. Um, yeah, and then I try to be as legit as possible. Be as true to yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to be Critical Role. Don't try to be Dimension 20. Be you. And that individuality is what will stand out to people a lot more than if somebody comes to your stream and is like, "Oh, they're just trying to be Critical Role, or they're just trying to be Dimension 20 or something like that." You will be successful if you run things as who you are. So I don't know. Those are just some tips that I've come up with within the past year and a half of my trying to make that one fun a thing. But yeah, Diana, one last thing before we get to the Q&A. Is there anything that you would say that you would tell people to just not do? Is there anything that you would say just shy away from, don't do this if they wanted to get into the business and be successful? Or something, maybe an example that you've seen that is immediately like, okay, no.
Ooh, man, I'm struggling with the right way to say this so that
Mm,
it doesn't come out shitty. Um, don't don't chase big names. Don't do that. It's not authentic in a sense. And now I say this like I have played with some people who, other folks would pay for the opportunity to play with, but the most impactful experience that you can create at a table is a bunch of people who role play and enjoy role playing together. Not the table with the biggest follower count or name recognition. Um eh, that would be it. Interpret that however you like. But it's foolish to try and set up a table with, people always talk about who would your ideal D&D table look like?
Yeah.
And people always mention, The Rock would be really cool. Bill Murray would be great to have at a table.
Jack Black.
The Jack Black. Yeah, like yes, of course. That would be super cool, an experience to talk about. But are you going to be able to role play with that person and tell a compelling story and create an environment, an immersive game for people to consume? No, you're not. Which is part of the reason why I say focus on table composition. Focus on those people who are going to play off of each other and work well together and create a fully fleshed out vision from the little inspiration cues you drop.
Right.
Don't focus on names. That's not important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I guess one last thing beforehand. Be consistent. Be consistent. That's another thing. In all of content creation, the biggest tip that you could possibly give somebody is be consistent. Now, be it once a month, once every couple months, or once a week, or hell, if you stream every day,
Just do what you say you're going to do.
Do what you say you're going to do. Right, exactly. Make a schedule, or even if you don't have a schedule, just be consistent. Just do the thing. And even if it's not the best thing you've ever done, just do the thing and keep doing it. And I guarantee you, your group will build. You're watching, you're following, and whatever, your group will build. All right. Well, Diana, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now that we've completed the I guess between you and I question and answer section, let's go over and ask chat. Do you guys have any questions for Diana? This is kind of where we do a little Q&A with chat, just in case they have any specific questions that they had during the actual interview or anything like that. And we see if they have any questions. If you want to ask Diana about anything, that we talked about during the actual interview, or you want to talk about something that she has coming out or anything like that, ask away.
All my projects are secret. If you know about my secret projects, I'm gonna have to waste you.
Okay, all right. We got one right here. So Shiny asks, so with a Cthulhu campaign coming up, what is your favorite old one? Do you have a favorite old one?
Okay. So here's where probably my opinion differs very, very much from a lot of other GMs, and I'm sorry for this, but I like to make up my own shit. The reason for that being is then no one can come to me and bitch about rules. I will create a fucking meat grinder situation for my players. I will make it difficult. I will get them within a hair's breadth of all dying, and then I'll let them win. And that's one of the benefits of making my own shit, as opposed to going with the more established big bads, if that makes sense. So I don't have a favorite old one. I like to pull, a toothy maw here, a tentacle there, and kind of recombine it to make my own Transformer Elder God.
Hell yeah. It's a build a Elder God. I like it. I like it. Do you have a dream project that you'd love to create? Is there something that you've been kind of thinking of that would be really wonderful that maybe you've got not necessarily on the horizon, but maybe something that you're like, that would be really fun if we could do that?
I have a really stupid project that I really want to make. I don't know if that counts.
I'm sure.
So, oh man, poor Justice. I know I'm going to hear him laughing all the way downstairs. So there's a sort of Stardew Valley-esque farming simulator called Sunhaven that I adore.
Yes, I've seen you
Stardew
mention that.
Valley plus magic. I talk about it a lot. Yeah, I talk about it a lot. I really, I
saw
hope
you take an
Sunhaven one day
opportunity on-
knows my name. Hey, Pixel Sprout Productions, I'm here if you need an affiliate of any kind. I have this concept for a long-term D&D campaign, which is something that I haven't been able to do at all. set in the world of Sunhaven, because it's very well fleshed out. They've created, secondary and tertiary locations. They've created some really wonderful NPCs for you to interact with. And I'm like, ooh, this is a D&D campaign all ready to go. So I really want to create a long-term D&D campaign set in that world. And it's something that I've spoken to a few people about so far. But again, my big thing is that I want to pay my players.
Yes.
And listen, I'm not made of dollars, and neither is Justice. I married someone who was just as poor as I was. So funding those projects is going to take a little while to get it up and running. I never feel good about streaming content and not compensating someone for that stream. So
100%.
It's my dream project. It'll happen eventually. I just don't know.
I like it. It's very wholesome and fun. Like she said there.
It will be until I build an Elder God.
That you think build an Elder God would end up in Cthulhu? No, it's going to end up in her campaign.
It's going to end up in everything I run from here on out. Sorry, guys.
Arth has a really good question here. He says, has your background in psychology helped you with handling the haters before? Do you think it has, at least, I guess?
No, because like I said earlier, I'm a marshmallow. Everyone takes those jabs very personally, but what it has helped me do is build my network and my relationships.
Mhm.
It's helped me, especially now when we're doing so much of our communication digitally. It's helped me communicate so much better. Which is a big thing. So much subtext gets lost in text messages and emails and things like that,
Oh, yeah.
that we can often misinterpret and miscommunicate, which leads to a whole lot of feel bads. And then, you thought you had a partner and someone just sort of drops the project. It's like a whole big mess. But what it has helped me do is build strong relationships across the community with tons and tons of different types of creators. So it's helped me, but definitely not in dealing with the people who are critical of the things that I do. I think that's something that you just kind of take and you cry about it and you learn from it and move on.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I really don't have anything to add on that. It's just very true. The question here says, I guess, how do you put your players together for games like that? Do you reach out to them or hold auditions, or how do you usually go about it?
I don't hold auditions. Because again, one of the big important pieces for me is table composition. So it all kind of depends. There are a couple people who I'll cherry pick for specific projects because I know it's something that they would enjoy doing. Like when I was putting together this Call of Cthulhu game, I was like, ooh, Noir would have a lot of fun with this. So I contacted him and I was like, okay, well, I've never been your GM before. So what is going to make you more comfortable at that table? Because the more comfortable people are, the better role play you're going to see. And he was like, well, there are a couple of other folks that would play well in this dynamic and who I've played with before who might have fun in this environment. What do you think about these names? And so it goes in sort of a snowball effect. But it always starts out with, how do I create a comfortable environment for this person for whom this is not a normal experience? Especially like with Bolton Rampart. I've never played a game with Anita before. I've never played a game with Drac before. They're both new players, but we did a little session 0 where we talked about character concepts and things like that. We're about to do a session 0 with just a short scenario so that everybody can test out those new characters. But yeah, for me, it's all about comfort.
All right. So making sure they're comfortable and also making sure you're comfortable. If you're running the game, you got to make sure you're comfortable.
I'm easy. I'm flexible though.
Okay, well,
that's not a big deal.
I want to make sure that at least me, whenever I run my games, that I have people that I know, once talking to them, that I've made the right decision. And I don't ever want to go into a game not knowing what the character is going to be like, or what the player is going to be like, not the character.
That, and I think just setting the proper expectation going into every game, especially, again, this is part of the reason why a game for public consumption is so different from the one that you play at
Oh,
your
yeah, for sure.
table. Um, especially with the streams that I run for publishing partners or things like that. There is always a very set expectation. Okay, guys, by the end of this episode, you should be figuring out X, Y, or Z. And then everybody kind of adjusts accordingly. The other part is that just because someone sits at your game table and plays really well with you personally, or just because they're one of your best friends, does not mean that they are suited to be streamed.
Oh, 100% sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't make them a bad person, just means it's not their thing.
That's so true. And to be fair, my wife is a wonderful human being, and she loves TTRPGs when she, we sit down at the table. But I couldn't get her to sit in front of a camera and play, D&D live on stream or anything like that if I tried. She is just like absolutely like a different one. She's like, she acts different and stuff like that because she doesn't know how to act in front of people. And, she gets nervous because people are watching and stuff like that. So there are things that you need to consider about a streamed game that you never have to consider whenever you are an at-home game. So yeah,
exactly.
Super true. Okay, we'll end on this last question real quick. This last question says, can you wrap up, because we didn't really talk about it too much, but can you wrap up what the #family means to you in one sentence?
Oh, man. That's a warm and fuzzy question.
It's a warm and fuzzy one.
Warm and fuzzy. For as polarizing and as diehard and agitated as the D&D community can at times seem, the family, or the Vampire the Masquerade community, is the exact opposite. I have never felt so welcomed or supported in any TTRPG space than I have when I started playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, I did not play it right to start out with.
Okay.
But they are more than willing to share information and to share inspiration, and it's such a wonderful place to be. And my favorite thing about it is, so the Paramount Vampire the Masquerade stream, LA by Night. They just ended their first series, I guess not just now, but Jason Carl, the brand director for the World of Darkness, ran that for 4 years with the same characters in this wonderful cast. They engage with the community directly all the time.
I was so surprised.
If you aren't following Jason on Twitter, do it. Do it. Even when he isn't directly sharing World of Darkness news, he's sharing inspirational thoughts and quotes and just like these little thought-provoking moments about being a vampire and what does that really look like. And that whole community carries that same energy. So being a part of the family to me is exactly like it sounds. You're a part of the vampire family. I screw up all the time. I'll be the first person to admit it, that those books are daunting. I do not remember every discipline. I could not remember every discipline if I tried. I don't hold all that lore in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Awesome. And
I'm going to tear up. I love the family so much.
And honestly, Jason is such an amazing person too. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. And he is, and like chat says, he is like everywhere. Every time you even the smallest, non-huge tweet or something like that goes viral or something like that, he'll be like one or two people that like the post or something like that about Vampire the Masquerade, or something that has something to do with it,
which that's part of his job, right? But also he genuinely cares about the health of the community and wants to see people's ideas, which is just spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. He is there to support people and get people into the game and really show people that it is, like you said, it's like a big family of people who are welcoming, at least, to the community. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. That kind of concludes the Q&A section of the interview. Thank you, Diana, for everything. And that
Hey,
includes
you know what?
beyond the interview. Please, would you take this moment to riff about whatever you have coming up, or if you are in something or something that you are looking forward to in the upcoming year?
Oh boy. So there's a lot of things that I cannot talk about yet.
Right.
But I will say keep an eye on the new Zweihander Kickstarter that's gonna be coming out soon. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on Renegade. There's all kinds of cool things happening over at Renegade Games. Um, Man, there's a couple things with Band of Badgers later this month that you're gonna see, and of course, Bolt and Rampart. So that is our 4-part Call of Cthulhu campaign inspired by Joe Hill's Lock and Key series. It's our 4-part fundraiser for Jasper's Game Day. I decided to try and do something a little bit different for my first ambassador event there. Donations are going to affect the game. You guys can give the cast keys. You can throw elder gods at them. It's all up to you. Only you can destroy the will to live among these 5 brave souls. That starts February 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time over on twitch.tv/Bard and Barbarian. In the meantime, you'll probably see a couple new designs popping up over at bardandbarbarian.com just because I get bored, so I design things. And I think that's about it that I can talk about right now.
That's awesome. And where can we catch you online? Now, I know we talked about a lot of things, but just go ahead and plug those as well.
Find me on Twitter at DiMicco Diana. Is going to be where you see all of my hot takes, good, bad, and in between. And then check out Bard and Barbarian. At Bard and Barbarian is where you're going to see all of the cool things that Justice and I are working on together. I know he has some neat things that we're going to be able to post about there soon. So yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Die Hard Dice. Follow Die Hard Dice.
Yeah,
I
sure,
do
why not?
really cool shit for them.
Awesome. Yes. Yes. And also check out Bard and Barbarian's Twitch and YouTube channel. They also have a Twitch and YouTube channel. So check those out.
Yeah, we do have a YouTube, don't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah. You got a lot of actual a lot of actual plays on there. So I was checking that out earlier. But thank you again, Diana, for showing up and hanging out with me and answering some tough questions and giving the world and giving the viewers, the listeners, some information.
I'm so sorry, guys.
They might not have had in the past. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody that's in chat. We are going to raid here in just a second. I don't like to leave without giving somebody else some love. So thank you all very much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and you will be inundated with a ton of D&D or TTRPG related goods, such as interviews, goofy commercials, and live plays. You even check out runningfeywild.com.
Runningfeywild.com. What's that about?
No. Okay, runningfeywild.com is our new actual play that takes place with real people getting transported over into the Feywild.
Wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah, you should check it out.
But can I jump in? I'm sure a lot of episodes have happened already.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're 1,000 episodes. No, it just started last week.
Oh my gosh!
Right. So you can catch us from the start. You can get in on the ground floor and be one of our awesome supporters. You can also check us out at patreon.com/runningfeywild if you do want to support us. Thank you all so much for watching. Keep being your best selves, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.